But how did you come to know that Audrey was going to those spaces on the internet, on Roblox
I,
specifically?
I did not know until after she died. I did not know any anything. Um,
How did you eventually come to know?
well, after she took her own life, I didn't believe she took her own life. I believed it to be an accident, and it was possibly like a TikTok challenge of where children pass out and like force themselves to pass out, and it went wrong. That's what was I believed because I just couldn't process thinking that she would want to die. So, um, you know, after and when I found her and that whole entire night, evening into the morning, those following days at her memorial, I kept saying this was an accident. And the next Monday, I went back to work because I didn't know what else to do. And I got a call from the detective, and he asked me to come to his office. And that is when I learned that this indeed was not an accident. And I learned the group she was a part of, and I learned the dark side.
And may I ask what you learned?
Well, the way he kind of presented it to me was, I know you believe this to be an accident, but it wasn't. We recovered a journal from her school locker, and he proceeded to slide it across the table. And I'm like, what is that? I've never seen this before. And it's a green notebook, and it had Audrey Claybold wrote on it, and had, stickers, and it didn't look like a typical like diary or anything. And he at that point, he said she's a part of an online extremist group. And I was just like, I'm pretty sure I think I told him to shut up for a second. And I pulled out my phone and I immediately got onto TikTok and typed in TCC. And I think I just sat there. I mean, I know when I say I think, it's just because, my mind was bombarded with this information that I couldn't process. So I had to physically see it myself. And as I was sitting there watching, I remember him saying, "Okay, you got to put your phone down and like listen to me." And I'm just still mind blown in denial, like, no, no. And he said, "Yes." Like, she wrote about it. She had a countdown to her death date. And I didn't read her journal. I actually left her journal there. I asked him a few questions, and at this point, her dad left the meeting, and it was just, we were talking, and I said, I just want to know, did she write about me? Did I do something wrong? He said no, and it was questions I asked that were very like general because I don't think I wasn't able to process still. And I was in this tiny office, no windows. It was like an interrogation room almost, what it felt like. And I just remember I wanted to leave. I just wanted out of there because what he was telling me was not my daughter. And that is when I went home and went down the rabbit hole and learned everything. And I started to piece everything together.
You mentioned a few moments ago that the journal had the name Audrey Klebold, as in Dylan
The
Klebold.
Columbine
Oh,
shooter,
oh,
yes.
okay.
And they
So,
did explain it's a group that worships, idolizes, romanticizes the Columbine shooters. And I was just looking at him like, what are, like, what are you talking about? was just, I could not process it until I left there and did my own research.
Well, you are you made a obviously we've talked about it and we've talked about it without talking about it, and I'm going to ask you about it, and if you don't want to talk about it, I totally understand. But can you tell me about what happened on December 3rd?
So it's December 2nd.
Oh, it was December 2nd.
Yes, that was her
Okay.
last day
Okay.
of being alive. December 3rd is, I think because that's what time the coroner had to list it. Um, she went to school, normal morning. She was excited for because it was her birthday.
And she was a seventh grader, correct?
Yes. Yeah. She went to school and she was excited to wear her new Van shoes, her new outfit she got for her birthday, and she came home from school. Everything was normal. I was at work. I remember texting her and I was like, "What do you want for dinner? I'll stop at Kroger's." I remember picking up dinner and, I went home, cooked. Everything was normal. And Audrey's a typical teenager. And, there's days that they get really moody and want to like slam their door and stay in their room. Audrey was very happy that day and she got a guitar for her birthday. So she was learning it and she was teaching herself and she was doing so well with it. So she was sitting on her bed after school for hours, up until dinner was ready. And she had her phone propped up and it was on YouTube and she was playing her guitar, watching YouTube to it was a Nirvana song. And then she came out, had dinner. Um, by this time, it was, she knows, and she was in her normal routine. She takes a shower, picks out her clothes for the next day, lays them out. She came into my bedroom a few times and showed me some videos on TikTok that she thought were funny. They were like animal videos. And I asked her if she wanted to get in bed and watch, it was the movie Twisters, the new one. Um, and she didn't want to. She's like, no, I'm just gonna go to bed. And I just said, all right, good night, I love you. And that was, nothing out of the ordinary. Zero. Um, it so I remember Kentucky weather, like it's up and down. One day it's like 70 degrees and December, the next day it's like negative. It got cold that night and at the time my boyfriend he went up to change the thermostat, turn up the heat. He noticed, so Audrey had a pet bearded dragon, and she religiously always turned off his light at night. He noticed the light shining through the bottom of the door, and he opened it up, and that's when he seen her and ran and got me. And he said, "Call 911." And immediately I'm like, "Is there a fire? Is someone breaking in?" He goes, "No." And I said, "Is it Audrey?" And he didn't say anything and I just ran to her room, which was not far. It's a condo, so her room and then there's a living room and then the master bedroom. So and that is when I seen her. He did pick her up off of so we share, her bedroom had a walk-in closet, so we shared a closet and we also shared clothes, we shared everything. um so he there was a coat rack hanger on the door to our closet. And, at first, obviously, I didn't notice the chair to her vanity knocked over on the floor. Um, it was, I don't even think I called 911 and I couldn't even, like, I remember just throwing the phone and my boyfriend picked it up and told them, come, come, come. And, um, she looked like she was sleeping, but I that's when I seen a robe, my robe, the tie around it, around her neck. And I just remember thinking, what did you do? What is happening? And I knew immediately, and I don't know if it's a mother's instinct, I knew she was gone. I knew. And you know, my boyfriend was saying, start chest compressions. And I remember being scared almost to touch her because she was gone. And at that moment, I immediately ran across and banged on the neighbor, because it's a condo where you go inside the building and then there's doors uh, um, to go inside each like the unit. And I just started banging like, I need help, I need help. And I'm running back and I'm like, Audree, 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 like, come on, but even though I'm like, she's gonna come back, she's gonna come back, they're gonna come here and use the AED device and shock her, she's gonna come back. But same time, it's like I knew she was gone. And it wasn't, I mean, luckily where I live, it took them probably 3 minutes to be there. And it was very like out of the way, and I was shoved out. And it was pretty much within 10 minutes, they came out and said, she's not coming back. And it's kind of like how you'd imagine you're just screaming or crying and you're like, no. And I just remember telling them, no, 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 you can get her back. Like, shock her, get her back.